There's one word that all parents fear. One word that's on the back of their mind when they look at their lovely little baby or toddler. The word, teenager. The thought, what will he or she be like when they hit 13? The fear, how on earth am I going to cope with it? But we're all teenagers. Take a moment and reflect. What were you like when you were a teenager? Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, very welcome guests. I remember very well what I was like when I was a teenager. And it wasn't pretty. And so when I thought about what my children would be like when they would become teenagers, I thought, I need to be really up to speed because I want to be the best parent I can when they hit 13. I also thought I might do a little bit before they hit 13. I'd focus on that time too. And how was I going to be such a great parent? I was going to be cool. I was going to be hip. I was going to be down with the kids. I was going to be hanging out. I was just going to be there. They'd say things like, well, it's not like father and son. It's more like we're best mates. Yeah. That was my thought anyway. But how was I going to stay in touch? How was I going to know what it was going to be like to be a teenager all those years ago? Things have changed so much. Back then, it was Sony Walkmans with cassettes instead of iPods for your music. And it was Tony Blackburn on Radio 1 instead of... Well, actually, I don't really know who it is. And that's my point. How do you stay in touch? But luckily, I had a plan. This was my plan. Go work with the kids. You work with the kids, you'll be in touch with them. So that's what I did. I got a job in a school mentoring secondary age students, 13, 14, 15. And I still remember my first mentoring session. It was like this. So tell me about yourself. What do you like to do at weekends? Well, mostly I just cotch in my yard with my brethren, innit? There's bare of us. Some are buff, some are butters. Sometimes next breeders come along looking for beef, but we just have to allow it because 5-0 are always around. Okay, that's really interesting, thanks. Straight out of the room, straight out to Google, English to Teenage Dictionary. And do you know what? There actually is one. So I found out what some of these words meant. They talked about bear people. What are bear people? People who live in the woods? Young teenage nudists? No, don't get started. Bear people are actually lots of people. A group of people is bear people. So you can go home tonight and tell your partners you were at a meeting with bear people. Next is next. Next is a word you have to know if you want to be a nonchalant teenager, because what next means is, I don't really care, I'm not bothered. What are you doing later on? Oh, I've got some next lesson with some next teacher. And then I'm going to some next place with some next people. It's deep. But my favourite, my absolute favourite was 5-0. Anyone know what 5-0 is? Yeah, 5-0 is a police. And do you know why it's a police? Hawaii 5-0. Some of you are same generation and you'd remember Hawaii 5-0. Some of you wouldn't, Michael, I'd imagine. Hawaii 5-0, 1970s cop show. The glamour show. You had cops in speedboats, you had girls in the hula skirts, and you had the soundtrack to die for. But these people are not talking about cops in speedboats. They're talking about Hounslow community police officers on their bicycles. It's a far world. So I started to learn about how they spoke. And I also learned other things about how they like to live. So, they came to school, they carried their bags. They had all their school books. Boys, they had bags like this, all their books. The girls had that. Probably couldn't fit their school books in, but it was enough for their fags, their mobile phones, and, would you believe it, their hair straighteners. So 6 years of all that, did it help me when my children hit teenage? Did it help? It was very naive of me. My son turned 14 this year, and he's interested in two things. Firstly, he's interested in music. Secondly, he's interested in being right. And he is so good at being right. He's fantastic at it because he speaks with all the conviction of certainty combined with a complete ignorance of anything to base it on. How great would that be, to be right all the time? Fantastic. And music. Now, I remember it wasn't very long ago when I could inflict my musical taste on him. By that I mean, obviously, I could educate him into decent music, you know, the Rolling Stones and Bob Dylan. But nowadays, it's like, I don't want to hear that, Dad. And he'd say, what, haven't you even heard of Bullet for My Valentine? God, Dad. And it's dancing. It's not just the music, it's the dancing. I'm trying to talk to him, and he's, yeah, Dad. Yeah, Dad. Yeah, Dad. Cool beans, Dad. Cool beans. If anyone finds out what cool beans are, please, I would love to know. So it seems like plan A is failing. I'm not staying in touch with my kids. I'm not down with them. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to resort to plan B. Plan B is bide my time. Wait for them to become adults and just take solace in the words of Mark Twain. Interestingly enough, what Mark Twain said was, when I was 14, my father was so ignorant I couldn't stand to have the old man around. He knew nothing. But by the time I reached 21, I was amazed at how much he'd learned in those 7 years. Mr. Tatman.